stood in the observation room of the human colony ship and watched the stars move past. His blue skin reflected the soft light from the screens around him. He had been on this ship for 6 months now, and he still did not understand these strange creatures called humans. The Galactic Council had sent him here to watch and learn. His people, were old and wise. They had seen many races rise and fall across the galaxy. The Council wanted to know if humans were ready to join the greater community of civilized worlds. So far had his doubts. The door opened behind him. Captain walked in, carrying 2 cups of the dark liquid humans called coffee. He offered one too. The observer took it politely, though the bitter taste always made him uncomfortable. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said, looking out at the stars. 50,000 people on this ship, all heading to a new world, a fresh start. Nodded slowly. "Captain, I must ask again, why do you name your ship, why call its Promise? It is simply a vessel, metal and circuits, nothing more." Smiled. It was that strange expression humans made when they found something amusing. "Was my grandfather. He always promised he'd see the stars someday. Never got the chance, so I'm keeping his promise for him." "But he is dead." "Doesn't mean the promise dies with him." Wrote this down in his data pad. Humans attached emotions to everything. This made them unpredictable, dangerous perhaps. The bridge crew worked around them. Second Commander sat at her station, laughing at something on her screen. During the last emergency drill, she had made jokes while alarms blared. Could not understand this. Emergencies were serious. There was no room for laughter. Observer called out, "You should see this. We're passing through the Helix Nebula. It's gorgeous." Walked over to her station. The colors on the screen were indeed striking. Purples and blues swirled in cosmic clouds, but it was just gas and dust, nothing more. "It is aesthetically pleasing," said carefully. Grinned, "You need to learn how to have fun." Fun, another human concept, struggled with. His people did not waste energy on frivolous activities. They were efficient, logical. They had survived for millions of years by being careful and measured. Humans were none of these things. In the engine room, Chief Engineer MeansHFY talked to the ship's fusion core like it was alive. Had observed this many times. MeansHFY would pat the machinery and say things like "good job" and "keep running smooth." The core was not alive. It could not hear, yet MeansHFY did this every day. Security Chief was no better. She kept a small photograph in her pocket, a picture of her family back on Earth. When asked why she did not simply use digital storage like everyone else, she said it was different. That holding the physical photo made her feel closer to them. Illogical, all of it. Reports to the Council reflected his observations. Humans were creative but inefficient, brave but foolish. They formed bonds that made no practical sense. They risked their lives for abstract concepts like honor and loyalty. His conclusion was clear. When real danger came, these emotional creatures would fail. Then the sensors started screaming. Was in his quarters when the alarm sounded. He rushed to the bridge, his heart's beating fast. The crew was already at their stations, but there was no panic, no chaos. They moved with quick, practiced efficiency. "What is happening?" asked. Captain stared at the main screen. His face had changed. The friendly smile was gone. In its place was something cold and hard. "Long-range sensors picked up a fleet," said quietly. "Reaver ships, at least one, maybe more. They're on an intercept course." Felt his blood turn to ice. The Reavers, the galaxy's nightmare, a hive-mind race that consumed everything in their path. No species had ever survived a direct fight with them. The proper response was always the same: run. Run as fast as possible and pray they did not follow. "We must retreat," said. "Council protocols are clear. We cannot fight them." Did not look away from the screen. "If we run, they'll track us. They'll learn the route to our colony world. 50,000 people here, but millions more heading too. We run, we lead them straight to everyone else." Then we must send a distress signal. Military forces can. Would arrive in 3 weeks, interrupted. She was not laughing anymore. We'd be dead or taken in 3 hours. Looked around the bridge. He expected fear, terror. These were civilians on a colony ship, not soldiers. They had farming equipment and building supplies, not weapons. But no one was panicking. MeansHFY's voice came over the comm system. Captain, I can overload the port plasma conduits, create a directed explosion, turn it into a weapon. That will destroy us, said. The mathematics. I've run the numbers, MeansHFY replied calmly. 63% chance we survive, 97% chance we take them with us if we don't. Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. Do it. All hands battle stations. The crew moved, fast, efficient, like they had trained for this their entire lives. Appeared on the bridge, armed with weapons did not know the ship possessed. She began distributing them to the crew. Where did those come from? Asked. We're colonists, said, checking her rifle. We planned for hostile wildlife. Guess we found some. The Reaver ship appeared on the. It was massive, dark, wrong. It moved through space like a predator stalking prey. Waited for the humans to realize how outmatched they were, to understand they were about to die. Instead, Captain leaned forward in his chair and smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was something else, something that made skin crawl. Weapons free, said softly. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our family. This promise turned toward the Reaver ship and accelerated. Gripped his seat. These creatures were insane. They were attacking a Reaver vessel, a civilization-ending force, with a colony ship. For the first time in his long life, understood what terror truly felt like. And the battle had not even begun. The explosion lit up like a small sun. Shielded his eyes as this promise shook violently. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. The smell of burning circuits filled the air. He was certain they were dying. Then the shaking stopped. Direct hit, reported, her fingers flying over her console. Their shields are down, hull breach on their starboard side. MeansHFY status, Captain called out. The engineer's voice came through, shaky but alive. Port side conduits are slag. We can't do that trick again, but we're still here, Captain, still breathing. Stared at the screen in disbelief. The Reaver ship was listing to one side, dark smoke pouring from the wound in its hull. It should not have worked. The mathematics said they should both be destroyed. Yet somehow, impossibly, the humans had wounded their enemy. They're retreating, said from her station, moving away at full speed. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then someone laughed. It was a short, nervous sound, but it spread quickly. Soon the entire crew was laughing and cheering. Did not understand. They had barely survived. The ship was damaged. They had made an enemy of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Why are you celebrating? He asked. You have only made things worse. That ship will report back to its fleet. They will send more, many more. The laughter died down, turned to look at him. The captain's face was serious again. You're right, said. They'll come for us now, in force. We've got maybe 72 hours before the main fleet arrives. Then we must run, now, while we still can. No, said simply. We've already been over this. We run, we lead them to the colony. We can't let that happen. So you choose to die here. Smiled that cold smile again. We choose to fight, there's a difference. Returned to his quarters feeling sick. His hands shook as he prepared his report for the council. He had witnessed something that should not be possible. Humans had attacked a Reaver ship with a civilian vessel and survived. But survival was not victory. The real battle was still coming. He tried to sleep, but rest would not come. The ship hummed around him, different now, damaged. The lights flickered sometimes. He could hear repair crews working through the walls, fixing what they could. After several hours, gave up on sleep. He walked through the corridors, observing the crew. What he saw confused him even more. There was no panic, no despair. People worked with calm determination. In the medical bay, doctor organized supplies and prepared beds for wounded. He moved efficiently, his face set in concentration. In the cargo holds, colonists sorted through their belongings. They were not packing to escape. They were pulling out tools and materials. Watched as a woman named, listed in the ship's records as an agricultural specialist, mixed chemicals with practiced hands. "What are you doing?" asked. Looked up. She had dirt under her fingernails and tired eyes. "Making fertilizer bombs. We've got tons of nitrogen compounds for the colony farms. Turns out they're also great for explosives." "You are a farmer." "Was a farmer," she corrected. "Right now, I'm whatever we need me to be." Watched her work. Her hands did not shake. She measured and mixed like she was preparing soil for planting, which he supposed she had been doing just days ago. In another section, he found teacher with a group of teenagers. She was not teaching them mathematics or history. She was teaching them how to use the ship's emergency controls, how to seal bulkheads, how to operate fire suppression systems. "These are children," said. Looked at him with hard eyes. "These are survivors. If adults fall, someone needs to know how to keep the ship running. They should not have to know such things." "No," agreed. "They shouldn't, but the universe doesn't care what should or shouldn't be, so I'm making sure they're ready for what is." Everywhere went, he saw the same pattern. Humans transforming. A cook was learning to maintain weapons. An artist was helping reinforce bulkheads. People who had signed up to grow crops and build homes were now preparing for war. That night found himself in the observation deck again. He stood alone, looking out at the stars. They seemed different now, less beautiful, more dangerous. "Can't sleep either." He turned to find standing in the doorway. She was still armed, he noticed. She carried her weapons like they were part of her body. "I do not understand you," said. "Any of you, you should be afraid, terrified. The Reavers are coming, hundreds of ships, you cannot win." Walked over to stand beside him. She was quiet for a long moment, just looking at the stars. "I am afraid," she finally said. "Every person on this ship is afraid. Fear is what keeps you alive. It makes you careful, makes you think." "Then why do you not run?" "Because fear has two sides," explained. "You can let it control you or you can control it. Use it. Let me tell you about Earth, observer, about where we come from." She pointed at a distant star. "Humans didn't start at the top of the food chain. We were prey, small, weak, slow. Everything on our world wanted to eat us. Big cats with teeth like knives, bears that could crush our skulls with one swipe, snakes with venom that could kill in minutes. Yet you survived." "More than survived, we thrived. You want to know how we learned to be afraid, really, truly afraid, but we didn't let that fear make us run and hide forever. We studied what scared us, learned its patterns, found its weaknesses." Turned to face him. The first humans saw a big cat and ran, fair enough. But then they came back, with rocks, with spears, with fire. They learned to scare the cats back. That's what we do, observer. We get scared. Then we figure out how to make the scary thing more scared of us. "The Reavers are not animals." "No," agreed. "They're worse. They're smart, organized, relentless, but you know what? That just means we have to be smarter, more organized, more relentless." She pulled out the photograph from her pocket, showed it to a man and two small children smiling. "My husband, my daughters, they're on the second colony wave, due to arrive at in 2 years. If the Reavers learn where we're going, my family dies. Everyone's family dies." She put the photo away. "So yes, I'm afraid, I'm terrified, but fear is just information. It tells me the stakes, tells me what I'm fighting for. And right now, it's telling me to check my weapons, train my people, and be ready to show the Reavers what happens when they threaten a human's family." Left, but her words stayed with. He had thought humans were brave, fearless. He was wrong. They were not without fear. They had simply made fear into a weapon. They understood it better than any species he had ever encountered. The next day attended a ship-wide assembly. Captain stood before thousands of colonists, expected a speech about hope, about courage, about how everything would be fine. Instead, told them the truth. The Reavers are coming. In less than 3 days, we'll face a full fleet, hundreds of ships. We are one damaged colony vessel with limited weapons and no military training. By every logical calculation, we're going to die. The crowd was silent. But Earth didn't raise humans to accept what's logical, continued. We're the species that looked at the sky and decided to fly. We saw death and invented medicine. We faced extinction and chose to fight. Every single one of our ancestors survived impossible odds. That's why we're here. That's what we are. He paused, looking across the sea of faces. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to prepare. We're going to fight. And we're going to show the Reavers what Earth's children look like when you corner them. The crowd erupted in a roar that shook the walls. Stood at the back watching. The sound was not joy, not celebration. It was defiance. And for the first time, he began to understand why the Council feared humanity. The ship changed. Watch it happen over the next 2 days. This promise had been a vessel of hope, carrying families to a new world. Now it was becoming something else, something darker. In the agricultural bays, worked with her team of farmers. They had converted their crop stations into production facilities. Nitrogen fertilizer became explosive compounds. Pesticides became chemical weapons. Growth hormones were restructured into toxic gas. This was meant to feed people, said, watching her pour chemicals into containers. Did not look up from her work. It still is, just feeding them time. Every bomb we make is another minute our families get to live. Her hands were steady, no hesitation. A woman who had spent her life growing food was now growing death. In the medical bay, doctor prepared for casualties, but he was doing more than setting up beds. Watched him modify medical nanobots, the tiny machines meant to heal wounds and fight disease. What are you doing to them? Asked. Reprogramming, said. These nanobots can break down damaged tissue to help healing. I'm teaching them to break down Reaver bioarmor instead. We release them into the ship's air during boarding actions. They'll eat through their protective suits. That could affect humans too. I know, so we take immune suppressors. Our people get sick, feel weak, but we'll be alive to feel it. The Reavers won't. A healer turning medicine into weapons. Had never seen such a thing. The transformation was everywhere. The ship's atmospheric processors were modified to create rapid pressure changes that could rupture Reaver breathing systems. The artificial gravity plating was rewired to create localized gravity wells that could crush attackers. Even the lights were weaponized, to flash at frequencies that disrupted Reaver sensory organs. Every system, every tool, every resource, all of it bent toward one purpose, survival through violence. But the most disturbing change was happening in engineering. Found MeansHFY in the main reactor room, surrounded by screens and wires. The engineer had not slept in over 30 hours. His eyes were red and his hands shook slightly. You need rest, said. I need to finish this, MeansHFY replied, not looking away from his work. He was building something, an interface between his own mind and the ship's tactical AI, recognized the technology. It was similar to what his own people used, but more crude, more dangerous. This will damage you, warned. The neural load is too high. You are not built for direct machine interface. I know, MeansHFY said quietly, but the Reavers think as one, a hive mind. They coordinate perfectly. Our only advantage is if we can predict their moves before they make them. This interface will let me process tactical data faster, see patterns, give us 3, maybe 4 seconds of warning. 4 seconds is not worth your mind. MeansHFY finally looked at him. 4 seconds is the difference between a shot landing and missing, between a bulkhead sealing and failing, between my crew living and dying. So yes, observer, it is worth it. You will not survive this. Maybe not, but I'll die buying time for people who will. Had no response to that. How did you argue with someone who had already decided their life was a fair trade? That evening, he walked through the corridors and heard singing. It came from the main common area, followed the sound and found hundreds of people gathered. They were singing together an old Earth song. The words spoke of standing firm against darkness, of refusing to surrender. Stood in the center leading the song. Her voice was strong and clear. When the song ended, people did not disperse. They stayed together, talking, hugging, saying things to each other that sounded like goodbyes. Realized what he was witnessing. These people knew they would likely die. They were making peace with it, finding comfort in each other. He had seen many species face extinction. Most descended into chaos, fighting among themselves, blaming each other, falling apart. Humans faced death by coming together. Observer. He turned to find Captain approaching. "Walk with me," the captain said. They walked through the ship together, showed him the preparations, the weapons caches, the reinforced bulkheads, the medical stations, every detail planned and ready. "Why are you showing me this?" asked. "Because when we're done, I need you to tell people what happened here, what we did, what we were willing to do." "You expect to lose." "I expect to fight," corrected. "Winning or losing is just the outcome. What matters is that we chose to fight." They reached the observation deck, stood looking out at the stars for a long moment. "My grandfather used to tell me a story," he said, "about Earth thousands of years ago. There was a place called Thermopylae. 300 soldiers held a mountain pass against an army of thousands. They knew they couldn't win, knew they'd die, but they fought anyway, held the pass for days, bought time for their people to prepare. They died, every one of them, but they won in a way, because the army they delayed, it was eventually defeated. Those 300 bought time with their lives, and time was what their people needed. Turn to face. That's what we're doing. We might not destroy the Reaver fleet, but we'll slow them down, make them cautious. Buy time for the other colony ships to change routes, to prepare. Our deaths will mean their survival." "This is madness." "No," said. "Madness is giving up. This is just mathematics. We're trading one ship for a dozen others. 50,000 lives for millions. It's the best deal we can make." Shook his head. "You calculate with your lives like they are numbers." "Because they are," said bluntly. "Every general knows this, every leader. The difference is humans don't shy away from the calculation. We don't pretend it's something else. We look at the numbers and we make the hard choice." The next morning was summoned to engineering. MeansHFY had finished his interface. The engineer sat in a chair surrounded by equipment. Wires ran from machines into ports on his head. His eyes were closed. "We're ready for the first test," said. He stood nearby with medical equipment. "This is wrong," said. "Probably," agreed, "but we're doing it anyway." They activated the system. MeansHFY's body went rigid. His eyes opened, but they were not focused. Data scrolled across his pupils, reflected from the interface. He was seeing the ship's sensor feeds, the tactical models, the probability calculations, all of it flowing directly into his brain. "Heart rate increasing," reported. "Neural activity at dangerous levels. MeansHFY, can you hear me?" "I can hear everything," MeansHFY whispered. His voice was strange, distant. "I see the whole ship, every system, every weapon. I can track 3,000 variables simultaneously." "And the Reavers, can you predict them?" "Give me a simulation." Someone ran a tactical program, a mock Reaver attack. MeansHFY's head tilted, processing. Then he spoke, rapidly listing coordinates and timing, where the enemy would strike, when, which weapons to use, which systems to prioritize. The simulation ran. Minyu's predictions were correct, all of them. But blood began to drip from his nose. "Disconnect him," said. "This is killing him." "Not yet," Minyu said. "I can handle more, need to. Optimize the pathways, reduce the load, just need." His body started shaking, moved quickly, injecting something to stabilize him. "Enough," ordered. "Disconnect." They pulled the interface offline. Minyu slumped in the chair, gasping. Blood ran from his nose and the corners of his eyes. "Did it work?" he asked. "Yes," said grimly. "But you can't do that for long, minutes at most. Your brain will hemorrhage." "Then I'll use it for minutes," Minyu said, "when it matters most." Looked at this human, this engineer who had volunteered to burn out his own mind for a few minutes of tactical advantage, who considered his own death an acceptable cost. "What is wrong with your species?" asked quietly. Minyu smiled through the blood on his face. "We learned a long time ago that sometimes the only way to win is to pay a price others won't. The Reavers are ruthless, efficient, merciless, but they have one weakness." "What weakness?" "They don't know how to sacrifice. They preserve themselves, protect their assets. They calculate survival, not victory. Humans," he laughed weakly, "will burn everything we have, including ourselves, if it means taking you with us." The countdown continued. Less than 24 hours until the Reaver fleet arrived. And every human on the ship prepared to pay the price of defiance. They came like a swarm of insects, blotting out the stars. Stared at thee and felt his heart's freeze. 312 Reaver ships. The sensors could barely count them all. They moved in perfect formation, a hive mind thinking as one. "Battle stations," Captain said calmly. "Minyu, are you ready?" In engineering, Minyu sat in his chair, wires already connected. "Ready, Captain." "Then light it up. Show us what you can see." The interface activated. Heard Minyu gasp over the comm, then the engineer's voice became strange again. Flat, mechanical. "Fleet splitting into 3 groups. Attack pattern Delta 7. Primary assault from above and starboard. Feint from port. Actual killing strike from below in 90 seconds. Recommend pitch down 15 degrees and roll 42 degrees. "Helm, you heard him," ordered. The ship moved, precisely, exactly as Minyu predicted. The Reaver ships adjusted, but they were slow, just 3 seconds slower than human response. 3 seconds was enough. "Fire solution optimal in 5 seconds," Minyu said. "Mark, now." Every weapon this promise had fired at once. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles, the space between the ships filled with destruction. 2 Reaver destroyers exploded. A third lost its engines and spun away. The Reavers returned fire. The ship shook as energy weapons struck their shields. "Shields at 60%, reported. "Boarding pods launching from their fleet," said. 43 pods inbound. "Let them come," said. "You know what to do." Watched the security chief grab her weapons and run from the bridge. Her teams were already in position throughout the ship, waiting. The first boarding pod hit the hull. Metal screamed as it cut through. Reavers poured into the corridor near the agricultural section. They ran directly into traps. Explosions tore through the corridor. Fertilizer bombs hidden in the walls detonated. The Reavers screamed, a horrible sound that made skin crawl. But more kept coming. Team met them with gunfire. The corridor became hell. Humans and Reavers fighting at close range, blood on both sides. "Medical bay, prepare for casualties," his voice came over the comm. "I'm reading multiple wounded in Sector 7. On the bridge, Minyu guided the ship through the swarm of Reaver vessels. His predictions were perfect. Every time the enemy moved to surround them, Minyu saw it coming. This promise twisted and turned like a dancer, always a step ahead. But the cost was obvious. Blood ran freely from Minyu's nose now. His eyes had burst blood vessels. Red tears streaked his face. Your vitals are critical, warned. You need to disconnect. Not yet, gasped. Just a little longer. More boarding pods struck home. The Reavers were getting smarter, hitting multiple points simultaneously. Teams could not be everywhere. Watched the internal sensors. Reavers had breached the lower decks. They were heading for the reactor. Captain, they are going to destroy the power core, said. Let them try, replied. He pressed a button. Release the nanobots in sectors 12 through 15. In the medical bay, Doctor opened containers. Microscopic machines flooded into the ship's atmosphere. Billions of medical nanobots for war. The Reavers in the lower deck stopped running. Their bioarmor began to dissolve. They clawed at their suits, trying to remove them. But the nanobots were already inside, breaking down organic matter. The Reavers died screaming. On the bridge, felt sick. This was medicine turned into horror, healing tools made into weapons of suffering. But it worked. The reactor was saved. Outside, the battle continued. This promise was surrounded now. Reaver ships fired from all directions. The shields were failing. Shields at 20%, reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. Hull breaches on decks 4, 6, and 9. Another officer called out. Seal them, ordered. Emergency bulkheads. People were still in those sections. The bulkheads would trap them, cut them off. The captain gave the order anyway. Heard the screams over the comm as the doors sealed. Humans on one side, death on the other. Some were trapped with Reavers fighting to their last breath. Casualty count passing 2,000, reported. Medical bays at capacity. 2,000 dead or dying, and the battle had only been going for 20 minutes. A massive impact rocked the ship. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Direct hit to the main power coupling, said. We've lost maneuvering. The ship was drifting now, dead in space, surrounded by enemies. Called, options. The engineer did not respond for a long moment. When he did, his voice was thick with blood. Routing backup power can give you 30 seconds of movement, but Captain, I'm seeing the pattern now. The way they're positioned. They're preparing for a final strike. All ships, concentrated fire, trying to atomize us. How long? 2 minutes. Was quiet, thinking. Could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. No shields, no movement. Surrounded, it was over. Said into his comm, how many boarding teams do you have ready? 4 teams, 30 people total. Enough, here's what we're doing. And the captain outlined a plan that makes blood run cold. 20 minutes later, led her teams into the Reaver boarding pods that had attached to their hull. But instead of defending, they went on the attack. They used the pods as bridges, crossing into the Reaver ships themselves. Humans boarding the Reavers. Watched through the external cameras as teams moved through alien corridors, carrying bombs. They planted explosives in reactor cores, in weapons systems, in navigation. Most of them died, cut down by Reaver defenders, but they kept going. Even wounded, they crawled forward to place their bombs. Watched herself take a blast to her shoulder. She fell but got back up. She had one arm useless and blood soaking her uniform, but she still planted her explosive, still set the timer. Charges set, she gasped into her comm. Detonation in 30 seconds. Get us home, Captain. Barely conscious, used the last of his strength to fire the backup thrusters. This promise lurched away from the Reaver fleet. 20 Reaver ships exploded simultaneously. Their reactors went critical, chain reactions spreading through the fleet. Ships collided. Others were caught in explosions. The perfect formation became chaos. They're breaking off, said, disbelief in her voice. They're retreating. Checked the sensors himself. She was right. The Reaver fleet, reduced by nearly 70%, was withdrawing, moving away at full speed. The Reavers, who never retreated, were fleeing. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then someone started laughing. The sound was broken, exhausted, but genuine. "Casualty report," said quietly. His voice came back. 12,347 dead, 8,000 wounded. We're still counting. 12,000, a quarter of the ship's population, gone. But 38,000 were still alive. Watched Captain sit back in his chair. The man looked decades older than he had 3 days ago. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. "MeansHFY said, disconnect, that's an order." They pulled the interface offline. The engineer slumped forward, was already running to his location with medical teams. "Will he survive?" asked. "I don't know," said honestly. "But he saved us. They all did. Every person who died bought time for the rest. That was the deal. That was always the deal." His teams returned. Only 12 of the 30 came back. Herself was carried on a stretcher, unconscious but alive. She still clutched that photograph in her good hand. Looked at the retreating Reaver fleet, at the debris field of destroyed ships, at the promise, battered and bleeding but still intact. For the first time in galactic history, a civilian vessel had fought a Reaver armada and survived. Not because humans were stronger, not because they were more advanced, but because they were willing to pay a price that no other species would accept. They had weaponized their own mortality. And it had worked. The memorial hall was quiet. Stood among thousands of small lights, each one representing a life lost. 12,347 lights. They filled the converted cargo bay, a sea of soft illumination. 3 weeks had passed since the battle. The promise limped through space, making repairs as it traveled. The journey to the colony world would take another month at their reduced speed. Security chief stood nearby. Her arm was in a regeneration cast, slowly rebuilding the tissue destroyed by the Reaver blast. Every day she came here. Every day she walked among the lights, touching them gently, saying names under her breath. "Do you know all of them?" asked. "I'm learning them," said. "It's the least I can do. They died so others could live. Their names should be remembered." She pulled out her photograph. Her family, 2 years away, still alive because 12,000 others were not. "How do you carry that weight?" asked. Looked at him with tired eyes. "You don't carry it alone. We all carry it together. That's what makes us human. We share the burden." In the medical bay, doctor worked endless shifts. The wounded needed care. Some would recover fully. Others would carry scars for the rest of their lives. MeansHFY was one of the lucky ones. The neural damage from the interface had been severe, but he was alive. He would never be able to use the interface again. His brain could not handle it. But he was back in engineering, moving slowly, relearning how to work with his damaged nervous system. "I would do it again," he told during one of the observers' visits. "Same choice, same price. Some things are worth breaking yourself for." Teacher had returned to her classroom. The children were different now, older in their eyes if not their years. She taught them mathematics and literature, but sometimes saw her pause, staring at empty desks where students used to sit. 43 children had died in the battle. 43 futures ended. But 312 children still lived, still learned, still dreamed of the new world waiting for them. Worked in the agricultural bays again, but the fields were smaller now. They had used so much material for weapons. It would be a tight first year on the colony. Food would be rationed. Nobody complained. Captain spent most of his time on the bridge. The ship needed constant attention. Systems kept failing. Hull breaches appeared from stress fractures. The engineering teams worked around the clock. But the ship held together, barely, like the crew damaged but not broken. Completed his final report in his quarters. He had written and rewritten it a dozen times. Every version said the same thing, but he struggled to find the right words. Finally, he settled on honesty. He recorded his message to the Galactic Council. I was sent to observe humanity and determine if they should be welcomed into galactic society. I have completed my observation. Here is my report. Humanity is dangerous. This fact cannot be avoided or softened. They are not dangerous because they are violent, though they are capable of great violence. They are not dangerous because they are aggressive, though they can be aggressive. They are dangerous because they understand fear in a way no other species does. Every species in the galaxy fears death. This is natural, this is logical. Fear keeps us alive, it makes us cautious, careful. Humans fear death too, but they have learned to use that fear, to weaponize it, to make it serve them rather than control them. I have watched humans face impossible odds and choose to fight rather than flee, not because they are brave. Bravery implies absence of fear. Humans are full of fear. They are terrified, but they fight anyway. I have watched them sacrifice themselves for others without hesitation. They calculate the value of their own lives and decide, coldly and rationally, that dying for a purpose is better than living without one. I have watched them turn tools of healing into weapons of war, watched farmers become soldiers, watched teachers prepare children for battle, watched a doctor use medicine to kill. I came here believing humans were primitive, inefficient, too emotional to be effective. I was wrong. Humans are the most efficient species I have ever encountered. They simply calculate efficiency differently. They include variables that other species refuse to consider: pain tolerance, sacrifice acceptance, willingness to die. The Reavers are the most feared species in the galaxy. They have destroyed civilizations that stood for millions of years. They are relentless, merciless, unstoppable. Until they met humans. A single human colony ship faced a Reaver armada and survived, not by running, not by hiding, but by fighting with such ferocity, such calculated brutality, that the Reavers chose to retreat. Let me repeat that: the Reavers retreated. I watched them flee from a damaged civilian vessel, because they calculated that humans would make them pay too high a price for victory. This is what makes humanity dangerous, not their strength, not their technology, but their willingness to make any enemy regret engaging them, regardless of the cost to themselves. I have been asked if humans should be welcomed into galactic society. I cannot answer that question, but I can say this: humanity is coming whether we welcome them or not. They cannot be stopped, cannot be contained, can only be befriended or opposed. I know which option I recommend. Paused the recording. Outside his window, stars drifted past. Somewhere out there, the Reaver fleet was regrouping, processing what had happened, updating their threat assessments. He wondered what conclusions they would reach. He resumed recording. I titled my initial reports, "Only at humanity's side did I learn what true fear means." I was wrong about this too. It is not at humanity's side that one learns fear. It is when standing against them. Because humans are not just willing to die for what they believe in, they are willing to die to make their enemies pay. And that is something the galaxy has never encountered before. End report. Observers signing off. He sent the message, then he went to find Captain. The captain was in the observation deck, as expected, stood looking at the stars, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "Your report is finished?" asked without turning. "Yes, I have told the council what I witnessed." "And what did you tell them?" "The truth, that humanity is dangerous, that you cannot be controlled or contained, that the galaxy must decide whether to embrace you or oppose you." Smiled slightly. "What did you recommend?" "Alliance, because there are many threats in the universe, and I would rather have humanity as a friend than an enemy." "Good choice," said. He was quiet for a moment. "The other colony ships have changed their routes, sent out warnings about Reaver activity. Some are even arming themselves now, using our battle as a template. Because of us, millions will be safer. 12,000 died to save millions. Was it worth it? Looked at him. Ask me again in 50 years when those millions have children and when they build cities on new worlds, when they create things we can't even imagine yet. Then I'll tell you if it was worth it. You sound uncertain. I am uncertain. That's the burden of command. You make the choice. You live with the consequences. You wonder every day if there was another way, but you can't change it, can only move forward. The door opened. Entered, followed by Minu and the core crew, the survivors. We thought you'd be here, said. They stood together in silence, looking out at the stars. These humans who had faced death and chosen to fight, who had lost friends and family but kept going, who carried scars both visible and invisible. In 3 weeks, said softly, we'll actually make it. Some of us, added quietly. All of us, corrected. Everyone who made it this far is going to see that new world. That's a promise. Watch them, these strange, dangerous, beautiful creatures. They had taught him that courage was not absence of fear but action in spite of it. That sacrifice could be a weapon. That hope was something you fought for, not something you waited to receive. Observer, Minu said, will you stay with us when we reach the colony? I have not decided. Think about it. We could use someone with your perspective, someone who understands how the rest of the galaxy thinks. Because humans were not just colonizing a world. They were establishing a foothold in the galaxy, and after what had happened, everyone would be watching. 3 weeks later, this promise entered orbit around. The planet hung in space, green and blue and full of promise. A new beginning. The survivors gathered in the observation areas, watching their future unfold below them. Stood among them, watching Captain name the first settlement, not after victory or glory or triumph. He called it memorial, so no one would forget the price that had been paid. As the first shuttles prepared to descend made his decision, he would stay, he would observe, he would learn. Because humanity was not just dangerous, they were also capable of great things. They built as fiercely as they fought. They created as intensely as they destroyed. And the galaxy needed to understand them. Deep in space, the Reaver hive mind processed data, updated files, changed classifications. Humanity, threat level maximum. Recommendation, avoid. And in the darkness between stars, other species monitored the news of a colony ship that had defeated a Reaver fleet. They discussed, debated, argued about what it meant. Some wanted to ally with humans. Some wanted to destroy them before they became too powerful. All of them felt the same thing had learned. Fear. Because humanity had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before, a species that would fight when they should run, that would sacrifice everything for a chance at survival, that would turn any tool, any resource, any person into a weapon if it meant protecting what they loved. The age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.